Shavua Tov, everyone. Welcome to TillesTells Stories for Saturday night. The title of this week's audio is Suing the Almighty. I adapted and supplemented the story from the rendition on LechaimWeekly.org. A life-saving miracle occurred on the 19th day of the Jewish month of Shvat, probably in the late 1700s, to the tzaddik known as the SHPOLER ZEIDEH. Subsequently instructed his family to commemorate this date throughout the generations. To this day, family banquets of the SHPOLER's descendants are held annually, and for your information, many are Chabad Hasidim. In keeping with the Zeideh's instructions, no waiters are hired, and every family member is personally involved in the service. Special emphasis is put on inviting poor people to partake of the meal. Rabbi Aryeh Leib, known as the SHPOLER ZEIDEH, Zeideh means grandfather in Yiddish, is famed as a miracle worker and for his devotion to the relief of poor Jews in distress. In his early years, he was a disciple of Rabbi Pinchas of Koretz, a leading figure in the first generation of Hasidim. He was not called Zeideh, grandfather, because of his advanced age, but that was his nickname even when he was very young, given by the Baal Shem Tov himself. But that's another story for another Saturday night. What was the miracle? When Rabbi Aryeh Leib had been Rebbe for 3 years in SHPOLER, there was a terrible famine in the area. The tzaddik, whose love for the poor, the needy, and the widowed was unbounded, felt compelled to provide for the thousands affected by the disaster. He could neither eat nor sleep, and his heartache was so great that for weeks on end he couldn't bring himself to taste anything more than bread and tea. As the famine spread to the furthest provinces of Russia, Rebbes from other starving communities in the area wrote to SHPOLER, begging the Zeideh to raise a storm in the heavens and beg that the deadly decree be rescinded. For who, if not he, a tzaddik and known to work wonders, could accomplish this? Rabbi Aryeh Leib, in his part, wrote to 10 of the greatest tzaddikim of the day, including Rabbi Zusha of Anapoli, Rabbi Yaakov Shimshon of Shiptovka, and Rabbi Zev of Zitomir, Zev Wolf of Zitomir, requesting that they come to SHPOLER immediately. They all complied and soon arrived. After they were seated at the long table of the SHPOLER ZEIDEH, they heard his awesome words. Honored rabbis, my masters, I am summoning the Almighty to a din Torah, a lawsuit in rabbinical court, and you are to serve as the judges. It is true that according to the law of the Torah, the plaintiff must take his suit to the place where the defendant is. But since in this unique case there is no place devoid of his presence, and since more particularly whenever 10 are assembled, the divine presence rests, we will hold the court case here. The holy minyan of Hasidic Rebbes accepted. Then they joined in prayer, their fervent supplications battering the gates of heaven. The SHPOLER ZEIDEH then instructed his aide to announce, by the order of those gathered here, I hereby proclaim that Aryeh Leib, the son of Rachel, summons the Almighty to a lawsuit which will be duly conducted in this Beit Din courtroom in 3 days. The Holy Rebbe spent the next 3 days together in fasting and prayer. No one was permitted to interrupt their devotions. On the 4th day, after they had concluded the morning prayers and were still wrapped in talit and adorned by tefillin, the SHPOLER ZEIDEH solemnly signaled his aide to announce that the court case was about to begin. In the name of all the women and children of the Jews of Russia, the tzaddik declared, I hereby state my claim against the defendant. Why does the Creator of the universe not provide them with food, thereby preventing their death, God forbid, of hunger? Doesn't the Torah itself say, for unto me, meaning unto God, are the children of Israel bondsmen? They are my bondsmen. Do we not have his promise too, recorded by the prophet Yehezkel, that even if his children should someday desire to go in the way of the nations of the world, this will never happen? One is forced to draw the conclusion that the children of Israel are the Almighty's servants for all eternity. In that case, they should at least be in the character of Jewish bondsmen. Jewish law teaches that a master is required to provide for the wife and children of his slaves. Can the Almighty violate his own Torah so blatantly? Now, I'm well aware that some clever prosecuting angel will argue in defense of the Creator, saying that these servants are remiss in their service, that they don't serve their master as well as they should. But to this bogus argument, I have 2 replies. First, Where is it written that that if a bondsman is lazy and doesn't work properly, his wife and children may be deprived of their sustenance? Secondly, if these servants are slack in their performance, their master can fault no one but himself. For who else gave each servant an evil inclination whose whole job and purpose is to drive them to abandon their loyalty and to destroy their desire to serve? That is, I can swear that if this evil inclination, which the master himself created, would cease to exist, they would become the most perfect servants possible. I might add that there's another time when the SHPOLER ZEIDEH made a similar claim. He said, God Almighty, what do you expect of your Jews? All the rewards for fulfilling the commandments are written in books, and all the temptations of the world are felt physically with all senses. I promise you that if you would put all the temptations into books and all the rewards that will accrue to souls for doing mitzvahs in front of our faces, the Jews would serve you perfectly. The 10 tzaddikim judges searched their tomes of Torah to ascertain the correct verdict for this unusual claim. After the passage of some time, they stood to deliver their unanimous ruling. This court finds in favor of Rabbi Aryeh Leib, the son of Rachel. The Almighty is accordingly required, by whatever means at his disposal, and the whole world is his, to provide for the women and children of his people. And may the heavenly court above agree and support the verdict of this court in the world below. The court pronounced its verdict 3 times. The SHPOLER ZEIDEH then asked to have vodka and refreshments served. The tzaddikim toasted l'chaim and ate together in a joyous mood before departing for home. 5 days before the momentous verdict had been reached, 5 days after the momentous verdict had been reached, the government announced the shipment of thousands of tons of grain. Immediately, the grain prices fell, and before long, there were ample fresh supplies of food at reasonable prices. And during the entire following year, bread was bountiful for all. And may bread be bountiful, and may we all have good health in this whole year.